I was staring at the Christmas lights twinkling on our neighbor's house when I felt it, that hollow sensation in my chest that had been growing stronger each day. It was December 23rd, and my husband Ethan was downstairs in his office, door locked, talking in hushed tones to someone on the phone. Again. My name is Emma, and I'm 32 years old. I've been married to Ethan for 7 years, together for 10. We bought this house in suburban Connecticut 5 years ago, painted the walls together, planted roses in the garden, talked about filling the bedrooms with children. I work as a marketing consultant from home, and Ethan runs his family's real estate development company. On paper, we were the perfect couple. On paper, everything looked beautiful. But paper lies. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps silent on the plush carpet we'd picked out together at that overpriced store in Manhattan. I could hear his voice through the door, warm and animated in a way it hadn't been with me in months. Maybe longer. When had it started? When had my husband become a stranger who lived in my house? I can't wait either, he was saying, his voice soft with an intimacy that made my stomach turn. Just a few more days. I promise, Sophia. Everything is going to change after the holidays. Sophia. The name hit me like a physical blow. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it through the door. But he couldn't, because he was too busy making promises to someone else. Someone named Sophia. I backed away from the door slowly, carefully, and made my way to our bedroom. Our bedroom. What a joke. Ethan had been sleeping in the guest room for the past 3 weeks, claiming his back pain was acting up and he didn't want to disturb my sleep with his tossing and turning. I'd believed him. God, I'd actually believed him. I sat on the edge of our king-sized bed and looked around the room. Everything was still decorated the way we'd done it together 3 years ago. Soft gray walls, white furniture, touches of gold in the picture frames and lamps. There was a photo on my nightstand of us in Greece, both of us tan and laughing, his arm around my waist, my head on his shoulder. We looked happy. We looked in love. When had that changed? When had he checked out? I picked up my phone with shaking hands and did what I should have done weeks ago when the late nights and distant behavior started. I opened Instagram and searched for Sophia, along with Ethan's company name. It took me less than 2 minutes to find her. Sophia Chen. 26 years old. A junior architect at Ethan's firm. Beautiful in that effortless way that made my throat tight. Long dark hair, perfect skin. One of those faces that looked good from every angle. Her Instagram was filled with photos of her work, artsy shots of buildings and design sketches, and tucked in between them, carefully cropped photos that showed just enough to tell a story. A coffee shop I knew Ethan frequented. The Italian restaurant where he told me he had a business dinner last week. A hotel bar downtown with a caption that read celebrating success with a champagne glass emoji. I scrolled back through her posts, my hand steady now, my mind clicking into a cold, clear focus that surprised me. There. 2 months ago. A photo of a blueprint with expensive pens scattered across it, and in the corner of the image, barely visible, a man's hand with a watch I recognized. The vintage Rolex I'd given Ethan for our 5th anniversary. 2 months. This had been going on for at least 2 months, probably longer. And I'd been so busy with my own work, so trusting, so stupidly convinced that we were just going through a rough patch that all marriages go through, that I hadn't seen it. No, that wasn't true. I had seen it. I'd just been too afraid to look directly at it. I heard Ethan's footsteps on the stairs, and I quickly closed Instagram and set my phone down. He appeared in the doorway, his tie loosened, his dark hair slightly mussed. He was still handsome. That hadn't changed. Tall, fit, with those green eyes that had made me fall for him at a college party 10 years ago. But when he looked at me now, there was nothing in those eyes. No warmth, no affection, nothing. Hey, he said, his voice flat. I'm heading to bed. Early meeting tomorrow. It was 8:30 on the night before Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve. I asked, keeping my voice steady. Yeah, we've got a big deal closing. You know how it is. He didn't quite meet my eyes. Don't wait up. He turned to go, and something inside me snapped. Ethan, I said. He paused, his hand on the doorframe, but didn't turn around. Do you even want to be here anymore? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, he turned his head slightly, still not looking at me directly. I don't know, Emma. I honestly don't know. Then he walked away, leaving me sitting there in our bedroom, my heart breaking so quietly I could hear the Christmas lights outside flickering on and off. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in our bed alone, staring at the ceiling, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to fall apart. I wasn't going to beg or plead or try to fix something that he had already broken. I was going to be smart. I was going to protect myself. And if there was any justice in this world, I was going to make sure that Ethan and Sophia learned that actions have consequences. The next morning was Christmas Eve. I got up at 6, showered, put on makeup, and dressed in a burgundy sweater and jeans. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. My eyes were hard, determined. Good. Ethan came down at 7:30, surprised to find me already up and making coffee. You're up early, he said, grabbing his keys from the counter. Couldn't sleep, I said, handing him a travel mug of coffee. Black, 2 sugars, the way he'd always taken it. For your meeting. He took it, looking slightly guilty, which was almost funny. Almost. Thanks. I'll try to be back by noon. My parents are expecting us at 2, right? Right, I said, smiling. Your mom would kill us if we missed Christmas Eve dinner. He almost smiled back. Almost. Then he left, and I listened to his car pull out of the driveway, down the street, away. I waited 5 minutes. Then I grabbed my own keys, my purse, and my phone, and I drove to his office. The office building was mostly empty on Christmas Eve, just a few cars in the parking lot. I knew the code to the side entrance. Ethan had given it to me years ago when we were still the kind of couple who surprised each other with lunch deliveries and flowers. I went up to the 3rd floor where his company had their offices and used the spare key card he kept in my car for emergencies. This was an emergency. Just not the kind he'd imagined. His office was unlocked. I slipped inside and closed the door behind me. His computer was password protected, but I knew his passwords. He'd never been creative with them, variations of his birthday, our anniversary, his college football jersey number. It took me 3 tries, and then I was in. I opened his email and started reading. My hands were steady as I scrolled through messages, clicking on threads, opening attachments. There was so much. Months of emails between Ethan and Sophia. Flirty at first, then more serious, then explicitly romantic. Plans to meet. Coded language about hotels and weekends away that he'd told me were business trips. There was an email from last week that made me pause. Ethan had written to Sophia, I'm going to tell Emma after the holidays. I can't keep doing this. I want to be with you. Really be with you. I'm going to ask for a divorce in January. January. He was going to wait until after Christmas, after we spent the holidays with both our families, after he opened presents I'd carefully chosen for him, after he let me kiss him at midnight on New Year's Eve. Then he was going to blow up my life. I took screenshots of everything. Every email, every message, every photo Sophia had sent him. Then I went through his files and found something even more interesting. Financial records for the company. Spreadsheets and documents that showed Ethan had been quietly moving money around, setting up accounts, preparing to hide assets before the divorce. He wasn't just leaving me. He was trying to make sure I got as little as possible in the settlement. I photographed everything, backed it up to a cloud drive, and then carefully closed all the windows and logged out. I was back in my car within 20 minutes, and no one had seen me. I drove home with my mind racing, planning. I needed a lawyer, a good one. I needed to protect myself financially, but more than that, I needed Ethan and Sophia to understand that you don't get to destroy someone's life and walk away clean. When I got home, I called my best friend Rachel. She answered on the 2nd ring. Emma, Merry Christmas Eve. Wait, what's wrong? I told her everything. The conversation I'd overheard, Sophia, the emails, the hidden money. Rachel was a corporate lawyer at a big firm in Manhattan, sharp as a knife and loyal to her core. That son of a bitch, she said when I finished. Emma, I'm so sorry. But listen to me. You did exactly the right thing getting that evidence. Don't confront him yet. We need to get you proper representation first. I know a family law attorney who's a shark. Let me call her right now. It's Christmas Eve, I said. I don't care if it's the second coming. This is urgent. Give me an hour. True to her word, an hour later Rachel called me back with a conference call that included Margaret Torres, a family law attorney with a reputation for winning even the messiest divorces. Mrs. Morrison, Margaret said, her voice crisp and professional. Rachel has filled me in on the basics. First, I'm very sorry you're going through this. Second, you've done excellent work gathering evidence. With what you've shown me, we can not only file for divorce on grounds of adultery, but we can also potentially pursue legal action regarding the hidden assets. That's fraud. What do I do now? I asked. Now? Now you act normal. You go to Christmas Eve dinner with his parents. You smile and play the loving wife. You give him no indication that you know anything. After the holidays, we strike hard and fast. We'll file papers, freeze accounts, and hit him with everything before he knows what's happening. The element of surprise is our greatest weapon. I don't know if I can pretend, I admitted. You can, Margaret said firmly. You're stronger than you know. And Mrs. Morrison? When this is over, he's going to regret every lie he ever told you. That's a promise. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my house and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, raw and bleeding, but underneath it was something harder. Determination. Resolve. Rage, but the cold kind that doesn't burn hot. It cuts clean. Ethan came home at noon as promised, carrying bags from the bakery his mother loved. Got the bread, he said, setting the bags on the counter. Are you ready to go? Almost, I said. Just need to grab the presents from upstairs. We loaded the car with gifts wrapped in silver and gold paper, and we drove to his parents' house in Westport. The whole way there, Ethan was on his phone, texting. I didn't need to look to know who he was texting. I could see it in the small smile that played at the corners of his mouth. His parents, Richard and Diane, lived in a beautiful colonial with a circular driveway and enough Christmas decorations to power a small city. Diane met us at the door with hugs and exclamations about how long it had been since Thanksgiving. Emma, darling, you look wonderful, she said, though her eyes were concerned. She'd always been perceptive. How have you been? Busy with work, I said, which wasn't a lie. But good. Really good. We went inside where Ethan's sister Caroline was already there with her husband Mark and their 2 little kids. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine, and Christmas music played softly in the background. It should have been perfect. I watched Ethan throughout the evening. He was charming with his mother, playful with his niece and nephew, jovial with his father. He was the Ethan everyone else knew, the successful businessman, the devoted son, the fun uncle. Only I could see the way he kept checking his phone, the way his smile never quite reached his eyes when he looked at me, the way he found excuses not to stand too close to me. During dinner, Diane asked about our plans for New Year's. Oh, we haven't really talked about it yet, Ethan said quickly. Work's been crazy. You work too hard, Richard said, shaking his head. Both of you do. You need to make time for each other. Marriage takes effort. You're absolutely right, Dad, Ethan said, and the hypocrisy of it nearly made me laugh out loud. After dinner, we gathered in the living room for presents. I'd bought thoughtful gifts for everyone, a first edition book for Richard who collected them, a cashmere scarf for Diane in her favorite color, art supplies for the kids. Everyone loved what I'd given them. Ethan handed me a small wrapped box, and I opened it to find a necklace. It was pretty. A simple gold chain with a small diamond pendant. Expensive, impersonal, the kind of thing you buy when you can't remember what your wife actually likes. It's beautiful, I said, because everyone was watching. Thank you. He leaned over and kissed my cheek, and I wondered if Sophia knew he was here, playing house with his wife. I wondered if it bothered her. We left around 9, and on the drive home, Ethan was quiet. Your mom's worried about us, I said. What? She pulled me aside while you were helping your dad with the dishes. She asked if everything was okay. She said you've seemed distant lately. Ethan's jaw tightened. She worries too much. Does she? I asked softly. He didn't answer, and we drove the rest of the way home in silence. That night, after Ethan had gone to the guest room, I sat in the living room with just the lights from our Christmas tree illuminating the space. I thought about the woman I'd been a week ago, the woman who believed in her marriage, who thought she knew her husband, who planned futures that included children and anniversaries and growing old together. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, smarter, angrier. Someone who wasn't going to be a victim. I pulled out my phone and looked at Sophia's Instagram again. She'd posted a new photo, a selfie in Christmas pajamas with the caption wishing everyone a magical Christmas Eve. Sparkles, can't wait to see what tomorrow brings. I screenshotted it and added it to my evidence folder. Christmas Day was a performance. We went to my parents' house in the afternoon, where my mother fussed over us and my father grilled Ethan about the real estate market. My younger brother and his girlfriend were there, everyone laughing and eating and exchanging gifts. My mother pulled me into the kitchen while we were preparing coffee. Are you okay, sweetheart? You seem, I don't know, different. I almost told her. The words were right there, pushing against my teeth. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I'd set everything in motion. Just tired, Mom. Work has been intense. She hugged me, and I let myself lean into her for just a moment, remembering what it felt like to be young enough that my mother's hugs could fix anything. The day after Christmas, Ethan announced he had to go into the office to deal with an urgent matter. I didn't even pretend to believe him anymore. Okay, I said. I'll probably do some work too. After he left, I got in my car and followed him. Not to his office, I knew he wasn't going there. I followed him to a boutique hotel in downtown Hartford, and I watched him park and go inside. 15 minutes later, Sophia arrived. She was even more beautiful in person, wearing designer jeans and a camel-colored coat, her hair shining in the winter sunlight. I took photos of her going in. Then I waited. They were in there for 3 hours. When they finally emerged, they were holding hands, laughing about something. Ethan kissed her on the street corner, his hand on her face in a gesture that was achingly tender. I took photos of that too. I watched them say goodbye, watched Sophia get into her car, watched Ethan stand there for a moment with a smile on his face before he got into his own car and drove away. I waited 5 minutes, then I followed Sophia. She drove to a coffee shop, and I followed her inside, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice me. She ordered a latte and sat down with her laptop, and I found a table in the corner where I could observe her. She was young, successful, beautiful. She probably thought she'd found the perfect man, older, established, handsome. She probably thought she was special, that what she and Ethan had was different, that he was leaving his terrible marriage for true love. She had no idea what was coming. I finished my coffee and left before she could notice me. I had what I needed. Now it was time to put my plan into action. The next morning, I met with Margaret Torres in her office in Manhattan. She'd agreed to see me despite it being the week between Christmas and New Year's, and I was grateful. I have everything, I said, laying out my phone and showing her the new photos and evidence I'd gathered. The affair, the meetings, the hidden assets, all of it. Margaret reviewed everything carefully, making notes on her legal pad. This is excellent work, Emma. With this, we can file for an at-fault divorce on grounds of adultery, which in Connecticut can impact the asset division. More importantly, the financial fraud is serious. Moving marital assets in preparation for divorce is illegal. We can go after him hard. What's the next step? I asked. We file papers on January 2nd. I'll have a process server deliver them to him at his office. We'll simultaneously file motions to freeze all marital accounts and assets. We'll also file a motion for exclusive use of the marital home, which means he'll have to move out immediately. By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late for him to hide anything else. Good, I said. There's one more thing, Margaret said, her eyes sharp. Do you want to go after the girlfriend? We could potentially file an alienation of affection lawsuit against her. Connecticut is one of the few states that still allows it. I considered this. Part of me wanted to make Sophia pay too. But another part of me knew that Ethan was the one who'd made vows to me. He was the one who'd betrayed me. Not yet, I said. Let's focus on Ethan first. If she stays in the picture, we can always revisit it. Smart, Margaret said. Never show all your cards at once. New Year's Eve arrived, and Ethan actually suggested we go to dinner. There's this new Italian place in West Hartford, he said. I thought maybe we could try it. Ring in the new year together. I almost laughed at the audacity. He was planning to divorce me in January, and he wanted to take me to dinner for New Year's Eve. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was one last performance for appearances. Maybe he wanted to tell himself he'd tried. Sure, I said. That sounds nice. We got dressed up, me in a black dress that fit perfectly, him in a suit and tie. We looked like a successful couple heading out for a romantic evening. We looked like people who loved each other. The restaurant was beautiful, candlelit and intimate. Ethan ordered wine, and we made small talk about work, about his family, about nothing that mattered. He was trying, I could see that. Trying to be present, trying to act like a husband. But it was hollow, a performance with no substance behind it. Emma, he said as we waited for dessert. I know things have been difficult lately. Between us, I mean. I want you to know that I'm going to try harder. Next year, I'm going to make more time for us. I looked at him across the table. This man I'd loved for 10 years, and I felt nothing but contempt. That's good to hear, I said, raising my wine glass. To new beginnings. He clinked his glass against mine, and we both drank. At midnight, we were back home, and Ethan actually kissed me when the clock struck 12. It was brief, perfunctory, meaningless. Happy New Year, Emma, he said. Happy New Year, Ethan, I replied, and I thought, you have no idea what's coming. January 2nd was a Tuesday. I woke up early, got dressed in a navy suit and heels, armor for what was coming. Ethan left for work at his usual time, and I waited until 9 o'clock before I called Margaret. It's time, I said. Papers are being filed as we speak, she confirmed. The process server is heading to his office now. Are you ready? I'm ready. At 10:15, my phone rang. It was Ethan. Emma, what the fuck did you do? His voice was shaking with rage and shock. I filed for divorce, I said calmly. Did you really think I didn't know about Sophia? Did you think I was that stupid? How did you? I heard you on the phone with her. Then I saw the emails. And the financial records showing how you've been hiding money. All of it, Ethan. I know everything. The silence on the other end was deafening. Emma, we can talk about this. We can work this out. No, I said. We can't. You made your choice. You were planning to blindside me after the holidays anyway, right? Ask for a divorce in January, after you'd safely hidden as much money as you could? I just saved you the trouble of having to tell me. This is insane. You can't just. I already did. You'll be served with papers requiring you to move out of the house within 48 hours. All marital accounts are frozen. And Ethan? My lawyer is really, really good. By the time this is done, you're going to wish you'd been honest with me from the start. I hung up before he could respond. My phone started ringing immediately, but I didn't answer. Instead, I called Rachel. It's done, I said. How do you feel? She asked. I thought about it. I thought about the woman I'd been a month ago, crying alone in her bedroom. I thought about Ethan and Sophia, thinking they'd gotten away with it, planning their future together on the ruins of my marriage. I feel strong, I said. The next few weeks were brutal. Ethan tried everything, anger, pleading, bargaining. He showed up at the house, but I'd had the locks changed. He sent emails, but I forwarded them all to Margaret without reading them. He tried to get his family involved, but I'd already told them the truth, shown them the evidence. Diane had cried and apologized to me. Richard had been coldly furious with his son. The court battle was fierce. Ethan hired an expensive lawyer, but it didn't matter. Margaret was better, and we had all the evidence. The emails alone were damning, but the financial fraud was what really buried him. The judge was not sympathetic to a man who cheated on his wife while simultaneously trying to hide assets from her. In February, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Sophia. "You ruined everything," she wrote. "Ethan and I love each other. You're just bitter and vindictive." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. "He was married. What did you think was going to happen? Did you really believe he was different? That he wouldn't do to you what he did to me? Good luck with that." She didn't respond, and I blocked the number. March brought more revelations. During discovery, we found out that Ethan hadn't just been hiding money, he'd also been using company funds inappropriately, mixing personal and business expenses in ways that were highly questionable. His father, horrified, started his own investigation into the company. April arrived with spring and with the news that Richard had decided to remove Ethan from his position as CEO of the family company. The financial irregularities were too serious to ignore, and Richard wasn't going to let his son destroy the business he'd spent 40 years building. Ethan was demoted to a junior partner role with no access to company finances. I heard about it through Diane, who called me in tears. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what my son did to you. You deserved so much better." "Thank you, Diane," I said, and I meant it. I'd lost my husband, but I hadn't lost his mother, who'd always treated me like a daughter. "There's something else you should know," Diane said, her voice dropping. "That girl, Sophia. She left him. Apparently when she found out about the demotion and the financial problems, she suddenly wasn't interested anymore. Ethan is devastated." I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt satisfied that Sophia had shown her true colors, that Ethan was getting a taste of betrayal himself. But mostly I just felt tired. "I'm sorry he's hurting," I said, and surprisingly, I meant that too. Not because I still loved him. That had died the night I heard him making promises to another woman. But because I'd once loved him, and it's hard to completely stop caring about someone you spent 10 years of your life with. By May, the divorce was almost finalized. Margaret had negotiated brilliantly. I got the house, 60% of our assets, and a substantial alimony payment for the next 5 years. Ethan had fought it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge had actually lectured him in court about the sanctity of marriage and the seriousness of financial fraud. I was sitting in my lawyer's office when Margaret delivered the final news. "It's done," she said, sliding the signed papers across her desk. "You're officially divorced. And Emma, you should be proud of yourself. You handled this with incredible strength and dignity." I looked down at the papers, at my signature and Ethan's, at the legal language that dissolved 10 years of my life into nothing. I thought I'd feel something dramatic, relief, joy, sadness. Instead, I just felt calm, clear, free. "Thank you," I said to Margaret, "for everything." That night, Rachel came over with champagne and Thai food, and we sat on my back porch as the sun set. "To new beginnings," Rachel said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings," I echoed. "So what now?" she asked. "What's next for the newly single Emma Morrison?" I thought about it. For months, I'd been so focused on the divorce, on protecting myself, on making sure Ethan faced consequences for what he'd done. But I hadn't thought much about what came after. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe that's okay. Maybe I don't need to have it all figured out right now." "That's very evolved of you," Rachel said with a grin. "But seriously, Em, you're 32, you're gorgeous, you're successful, you own a beautiful house, and you just got a very nice financial settlement. The world is yours." She was right. And for the first time in months, I felt something like excitement about the future. June brought unexpected news. I was at a coffee shop, working on a proposal for a new client, when I ran into Caroline, Ethan's sister. "Emma," she said, looking surprised but pleased. "How are you?" "I'm good," I said, and it was true. "Really good. How are you?" "Busy with the kids. You know how it is." She hesitated, then said, "Can I sit for a minute?" "Of course." She ordered a coffee and sat down across from me, her expression serious. I want you to know that Mark and I don't blame you for any of this. What Ethan did was unforgivable. You had every right to protect yourself. Thank you, I said, touched. That means a lot. There's something else, Caroline said. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I think you deserve to know. Ethan's been struggling. The demotion, the divorce, Sophia leaving him, it's all hit him hard. He's been going to therapy, actually, trying to figure out why he sabotaged his life. I absorbed this information, trying to sort out how I felt about it. I'm glad he's getting help, I said finally. I hope he figures it out. Do you hate him? Caroline asked quietly. I thought about it. Did I hate Ethan? I'd been so angry for so long, and that anger had fueled me through the divorce proceedings. But now, sitting here in the summer sunshine, I realized that the anger had faded. In its place was something like pity, and underneath that, indifference. No, I said. I don't hate him. I don't really feel anything about him anymore. And that's okay. Caroline reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're amazing, Emma. I hope you know that. After she left, I sat there thinking about Ethan in therapy, trying to understand why he destroyed our marriage. Part of me hoped he'd find answers. Not for my sake, I was done with him, but for his own. Because carrying that kind of self-destruction around was no way to live. But that was his journey now. Mine was something different. July brought a new opportunity. One of my clients, a tech startup in Boston, offered me a position as their chief marketing officer. It would mean relocating, starting over completely in a new city. A year ago, I would have immediately said no. I would have consulted Ethan, weighed how it would affect our life together, probably turned it down to maintain stability in our marriage. Now, there was no one to consult but myself. I said yes. August was a whirlwind of packing and preparation. I decided to sell the house. It had too many memories, and I wanted a fresh start. The market was good, and I got multiple offers within a week. I accepted one from a young couple who reminded me of Ethan and me 10 years ago, full of hope and plans for the future. I hoped they'd be happier in it than we'd been. Rachel helped me pack, and we spent long evenings sorting through belongings, deciding what to keep and what to let go. Are you scared? She asked one night as we wrapped glasses in newspaper. Terrified, I admitted. But also excited. Is that weird? That's healthy, Rachel said. You're allowed to be both. I found my wedding album in the back of a closet, and I sat there for a long time, looking at photos of a younger version of myself in a white dress, smiling at a man who'd promised to love me forever. That girl had believed in forever. She'd believed in happy endings and true love and promises that couldn't be broken. I wasn't that girl anymore. The woman I'd become knew that forever was a maybe, that love could die, that promises were only as good as the people who made them. But she also knew that she was strong enough to survive when those things fell apart. She knew she could rebuild. She knew she didn't need someone else to complete her. I closed the album and put it in the donation box. Someone else could have it. I didn't need it anymore. On my last night in Connecticut, I drove past Ethan's apartment. I don't know why, maybe closure, maybe curiosity. His car was in the parking lot, lights on in a second-floor window. I wondered what he was doing in there, if he ever thought about that night before Christmas Eve when I'd asked him if he wanted to be here anymore, and he'd said he didn't know. I wondered if he knew now. I wondered if he'd figured out what he'd been looking for when he'd turned to Sophia, if he'd found it or if he'd realized it was never about me or her but about something broken inside himself. But mostly, I didn't wonder. Mostly, I just felt grateful that his journey was no longer mine. I drove away and didn't look back. September in Boston was beautiful. My new apartment was in the North End, a converted loft with exposed brick and huge windows that let in streams of golden light. I decorated it completely differently from the house in Connecticut. Bold colors, modern furniture, art that I chose because I loved it, not because it matched anything else. My job was challenging and exciting. The startup was doing innovative work, and my team was young and passionate. I threw myself into the work, stayed late at the office, went to networking events, built a new professional reputation in a new city. But I also did something else. I started taking care of myself in ways I hadn't in years. I joined a yoga studio. I took cooking classes. I went to the theater alone and didn't feel self-conscious about it. I traveled to Portland for a weekend just because I'd always wanted to see Maine. I said yes to dinner invitations from coworkers and made new friends who knew me only as Emma, the CMO, not Emma, the divorced woman, not Emma, who'd been betrayed. I was building a new life, and it was mine. All mine. In October, I got an unexpected email. It was from Ethan. Emma, I know I have no right to contact you, and you don't have to respond if you don't want to. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry for what I did to you. I've been in therapy for months now, and I'm starting to understand how broken I was, how I sabotaged the best thing in my life because I was afraid and immature and selfish. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. I hope you're happy. I hope you found peace. You were always the better person, and I was too stupid to appreciate it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I lost, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. I read the email 3 times. I waited a day before responding. Then I wrote back. Ethan, thank you for the apology. I accept it, not for your sake but for mine, because I don't want to carry anger anymore. I hope you continue with therapy and that you find whatever it is you're looking for. I hope you learn to be honest with the people you love. I hope you become the man you should have been. But I also need you to know that I've moved on. I have a new life now, a good life, and I'm happy. What happened between us is in the past, and that's where it needs to stay. I wish you well, but I don't want any further contact. Take care of yourself. I hit send and closed my laptop. It felt like closing a book I'd been reading for too long, one that I already knew the ending to. November brought Thanksgiving, and I flew back to Connecticut to spend it with my parents. My mother cried when she saw me, but they were happy tears. You look wonderful, sweetheart, she said, holding me at arm's length. You look like yourself again. She was right. I felt like myself again. Actually, I felt like a better version of myself, stronger, wiser, more grounded. At dinner, my brother asked me if I was dating anyone. Not yet, I said. I'm not in a rush. I'm enjoying being on my own for a while. Good for you, my father said firmly. You take your time. The right person will come along when you're ready. Maybe they would. Maybe they wouldn't. Either way, I'd be okay. December arrived, and with it, the anniversary of the worst and best period of my life. A year ago, I'd been standing at my window, watching Christmas lights and feeling my marriage crumble around me. A year ago, I'd overheard my husband making promises to another woman. A year ago, I'd been heartbroken and terrified. Now, I was standing in my Boston apartment, watching snow fall over the city, and I was whole. Not because someone else completed me, but because I'd learned that I was already complete on my own. On Christmas Eve, Rachel came to visit me in Boston. We made dinner together in my little kitchen, drank wine, and laughed until our sides hurt. Can I tell you something? I said as we sat on my couch, looking out at the city lights. Always, Rachel said. I'm grateful for what happened. Not the betrayal, that still sucked. But everything that came after. I'm grateful that I found out who Ethan really was before I wasted any more years on him. I'm grateful that I learned how strong I could be. I'm grateful that I got pushed out of a comfortable life that was slowly suffocating me. I'm grateful that I got the chance to rebuild from scratch and create something better. Rachel's eyes were shiny with tears. Emma, you're incredible. You know that, right? I'm learning, I said. That night, after Rachel had gone to bed in my guest room, I stayed up late, looking out at the snow. I thought about Ethan and Sophia, wherever they were. I'd heard through the grapevine that they tried to get back together briefly over the summer, but it hadn't worked out. Apparently, what they'd had only worked when it was secret and forbidden. Once it was out in the open, once there were real consequences, it had fallen apart. There was karma in that, I supposed. Not the dramatic, revenge fantasy kind of karma I'd imagined in those early days. But karma nonetheless. Ethan had lost his marriage, his position at the company, the respect of his family, and the woman he'd thought he loved. He'd gotten exactly what he'd wanted, freedom from our marriage, the chance to be with Sophia, and it had turned to ashes in his hands. And me? I'd lost a husband who didn't deserve me. I'd lost a life I'd thought I wanted, but that had been making me smaller every day. I'd lost the illusion of security, but I'd gained so much more. I'd gained self-respect. I'd gained the knowledge that I could survive the worst and come out stronger. I'd gained a career I loved, a city I was falling in love with, friends who supported me, and most importantly, I'd gained myself back. On Christmas morning, I woke up alone in my apartment, and instead of feeling lonely, I felt peaceful. I made coffee and sat by the window, watching the city wake up. My phone buzzed with messages, from my parents, from Rachel still asleep in the other room, from Caroline wishing me a Merry Christmas, from co-workers, from new friends. I was loved. I was valued. I was enough, all on my own. That afternoon, I went for a walk through the snowy streets of Boston. I passed families going to Christmas dinner, couples holding hands, children dragging new sleds to the common. I didn't feel envious or sad. I felt present, fully in my own life in a way I hadn't been in years. I stopped at a small park and sat on a bench, watching the snow fall. A year ago, I'd been checking out too, not of my marriage, but of myself. I'd been so busy trying to save something that was already dead that I'd forgotten to live. I'd been so focused on being a good wife that I'd stopped being a whole person. Ethan checking out of our marriage had been the worst thing and the best thing that ever happened to me. It had destroyed my life, but it had also freed me to build a better one. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number, and for a second my heart jumped, thinking it might be Ethan. But it wasn't. Hi Emma, this is David from the marketing conference last month. I know this is out of the blue, but I'm in Boston visiting family for the holidays and I wondered if you'd like to grab coffee sometime? No pressure. Just thought it would be nice to catch up. Hope you're having a good Christmas. I remembered David. Smart, funny, easy to talk to. We'd sat next to each other during a panel discussion and ended up having drinks with a group afterward. He'd mentioned he lived in New York. A year ago, I would have overthought this. I would have analyzed every word, worried about whether I was ready, stressed about what it meant. Now, I just smiled and typed back, "Coffee sounds great. I'm free tomorrow afternoon if that works." His response came quickly, "Perfect. There's a place called Thinking Cup in the North End. 2 o'clock. See you there," I wrote back. Maybe it would turn into something. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe David would be a good friend, or maybe he'd be something more. Or maybe after one coffee we'd realize we had nothing in common. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I was open to possibilities again. What mattered was that I was saying yes to life. I walked home through the snow, and when I got back to my apartment, Rachel was awake, making breakfast. "Merry Christmas," she said, hugging me. "What were you doing out there?" "Taking a walk," I said. "Thinking." "About what?" "About how a year ago, I thought my life was ending. And it was, in a way. But it was also beginning." Rachel smiled. "You're going to make me cry, and it's too early for that. Come on, I made pancakes." We spent the day together, cooking and watching movies and talking about everything and nothing. It was simple and perfect, and I realized that this was what I'd been missing in those last years of my marriage. Joy in the small moments, presence in my own life, the freedom to just be. That evening, I got a message from Diane. It was a photo of the family Christmas dinner. Richard, Diane, Caroline, and her family. But Ethan wasn't in the photo. "Thinking of you today," Diane's message said. "You will always be family to us." I sent back a heart emoji and meant it. I'd lost Ethan, but I hadn't lost everything. Some things had survived, had even grown stronger. Before bed, I did something I hadn't done in months. I took out a journal and started writing. Not about the past, not about the divorce or the betrayal, but about the future. About the woman I was becoming. About my dreams and goals and hopes. I wrote, "A year ago today, I overheard my husband planning his future with another woman. It broke me, but breaking was what I needed. I was living in a marriage that had become a cage, with a man who had checked out long before I realized it. His betrayal set me free, even though freedom hurt like hell at first. Now, I'm in a new city with a new job and a new life that I built with my own hands. I'm learning to trust myself again. I'm learning that I don't need someone else to validate my worth. I'm learning that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's living well. Ethan thought he was trading up when he chose Sophia over me, but he was really just running from himself, and you can't run from that. He lost everything he thought he wanted and ended up alone, facing all the parts of himself he'd been trying to escape. And me? I lost a husband who didn't deserve me and found myself instead. I'd say I won. I closed the journal and turned off the light. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering everything in white, making the world new again. Tomorrow, I'd have coffee with David. Tomorrow, I'd keep building this new life. Tomorrow, I'd keep growing into the woman I was meant to be. But tonight, I was exactly where I needed to be. Alone in my apartment, at peace with myself, grateful for the journey that had brought me here. It was Christmas night, exactly 1 year after everything fell apart. And I'd never been happier. The next afternoon, I met David at Thinking Cup. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table by the window, and he smiled when he saw me. "Emma, hi. You look great." "Thanks. You too." We ordered coffee and talked easily about work, about Boston, about the conference where we'd met. He was in town visiting his sister and her kids, and he told funny stories about being the fun uncle. "So," he said after a while, "I have to confess something. I've been wanting to reach out since the conference, but I wasn't sure if you'd be interested. I kind of stalked your LinkedIn to see if you were available." I laughed. "And what did LinkedIn tell you?" "That you're extremely accomplished and that your relationship status is private." So I took a chance. "I'm divorced," I said, deciding to be honest. It was finalized in May. It's been a journey. "I'm sorry," he said, and he looked like he meant it. "That must have been hard." It was. But I'm okay now. Actually, I'm better than okay. We talked for 2 hours, and when we finally left the coffee shop, David walked me back toward my apartment. "I'd really like to see you again," he said. "If you're interested. No pressure, we can take it slow." I looked at him, this kind, interesting man who was offering me exactly what I needed. Possibility without pressure, interest without intensity. "I'd like that," I said. He kissed me on the cheek, and I walked into my building with a smile on my face. That night, I called Rachel and told her about the coffee date. "See," she said triumphantly. "I told you. The world is yours, Emma." "Maybe it is," I said. And maybe it wasn't about David specifically. Maybe it was about the fact that I was ready to be open again, to risk again, to trust again. Not blindly, the way I had with Ethan, but carefully, wisely, with eyes wide open. I'd learned the hard way that love wasn't enough if the person giving it was broken or dishonest or checked out. I'd learned that marriage wasn't sacred if only one person was honoring it. I'd learned that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is actually the catalyst for the best thing. Ethan checking out of our marriage had destroyed me. But from that destruction, I'd rebuilt something stronger, truer, more authentically mine. That was the real karma, I realized. Not that Ethan had lost everything, though he had. Not that Sophia had shown her true colors, though she had. The real karma was that their betrayal had freed me to become the person I was always meant to be. They'd thought they were starting something new together, but all they'd really done was give me the gift of my own new beginning. And I'd taken that gift and run with it. As the new year approached, I made plans with my new Boston friends to celebrate. I bought a dress that made me feel beautiful. I made resolutions about travel and career goals and personal growth. I looked at my calendar and saw it stretching out before me, full of blank spaces waiting to be filled with experiences I got to choose. On New Year's Eve, as midnight approached, I found myself thinking about Ethan one last time. I wondered where he was, what he was doing, if he was happy or if he was still trying to figure out why he'd destroyed his own life. And then I stopped wondering, because it didn't matter anymore. The countdown started. 10, 9, 8. And I was surrounded by new friends, in a new city, living a new life that I'd built from the ashes of my old one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year, everyone shouted, and I shouted it too, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. This year would be happy, not because everything would be perfect, but because I was finally living authentically, bravely, fully, because I'd learned that I could survive the worst betrayal and come out stronger, because I'd discovered that I didn't need anyone to complete me. I was already whole. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Happy New Year, Emma. Here's to new beginnings. I smiled and texted back, to new beginnings. And I raised my glass and toasted, not to revenge, not to karma, not even to love. I toasted to myself, to survival, to strength, to the long hard journey from broken to whole. I toasted to the woman I'd become, forged in the fire of betrayal and emerging like steel. That Christmas week when I'd realized my husband had checked out of our marriage had been the end of one story. But it had also been the beginning of another. A better one, a truer one where I was the author of my own life. And I was just getting started.